a long time, and lovely to see you again, and especially with Priya. Yeah. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Kinsher, as always.
Great. So I will kick off with a very basic question, which is very uh, sort of relevant. But before that, I just want to talk about Ramesh, your background, so that all of us have a perspective as to where you come from. So I'll just share a little bit about Ramesh. So Ramesh is a seasoned business leader with an overall experience of over 30 plus years, working with organizations like GE, Wipro, and TCS. Of this, over 15 years have been in senior business leadership roles, managing large, by which I mean 10,000 plus, global multifunctional teams. He brings significant business, customer management, project management, and sorry, and team leadership to the table, experience to the table. This includes working across industries, verticals, and geographies, dealing with individuals from diverse backgrounds and nationalities. Ramesh enjoys working with people, and he followed his passion by becoming a full time leadership coach and facilitator. He is accredited with the International Coaching Federation as a Master Certified Coach, popularly known as MCC, and he has over 2,500 hours of coaching experience, having worked with over 300 leaders and their teams since he started his journey 6 years ago. So that's almost 400 hours every year, which is almost like 1 hour every day. Ramesh loves working with teams since he believes that organizations can achieve sustainable and impactful change only when the system that they are part of changes as a whole. Hence, he has done a significant amount of systemic team coaching work too. Apart from coaching, Ramesh runs various leadership development programs through his organization, Orenda Center for Leadership Excellence, with a firm belief that inner wisdom guides every individual in his/her journey, and the role of a facilitator or coach is to help the individual reflect and derive their own insights. Besides this, Ramesh also has been a senior with me at GE, and we have spent many hours together working on various projects. So, Ramesh, my first question. So, from being a master black belt in Six Sigma to being a master certified coach from ICF is obviously a very interesting career transition. So, can you talk about why and how you made this switch?
Well, first of all, assuming people have heard of Six Sigma, I don't know whether it's relevant anymore. but, but yes, so to me, Kingshuk, um, the concept of Sigma was about actually leadership, right? It's about being able to sort out the trees from the woods, if you might say it, and then actually get to what you need to get done. And that's really what Six Sigma helped you do. So to me, actually, what that did was, and if you remember, I didn't spend too much of time as a as a Six Sigma practitioner. I moved out into operating roles, so it helped me actually hone my leadership skills. So one to my mind, there are three parts of leadership, right? One is knowledge of what you need to do, which is a technical competency. The other part is knowing how to approach problems and solving problems, and third is managing people. And I think uh, the jobs or the roles that I played right through sort of helped me do all of this all the time, and I think it was sort of quite natural. So some point of time, leadership became about people, and I think the larger teams that you have, it's really about working with people and nothing to do with your competency of in terms of what you bring to the table, especially roles where in organizations which are so um, uh, or even industries which are so different from each other. uh, it's impossible to even know everything that is to do with your job, right? So finally, you have to depend on people to solve your problems for you, and I think that's where the whole transition happened. So working with people became my area of interest, and in a way, I stumbled upon coaching. Fortunately for me, when I decided to hang up my boots and do something on my own, so it worked beautifully. I think the journey from learning to be a coach to becoming a master certified coach is a completely different journey altogether. It's about yourself, and I think that is the two things. One is working with others, which you're doing right through as part of your job. Uh, the journey of the MCC journey working with myself, and I think that was my biggest hurdle which I needed to get over for completing that certification. So the 2,500 hours or the 3,000 hours of coaching probably was the easier part rather than actually trying to figure out how to think differently, about what coaching means really.
Right. And I must say this, Ramesh, and this is not part of the script. Personally, I never s- thought that you would move from an operating role to a teacher and a coach kind of a thing. I mean, you were so hands-on in your quality role in G, especially, uh, and the contribution you made in the business meetings, etc. Uh, so that was a very unique, learning for me also. That how the transition happened within you to move from a role to another role. So it's quite fascinating. So that was an insight for me. Okay.
And that's the interesting part, Kinshuk. For some reason, and this is probably pure luck, right?
Right.
I'm looking at it as luck today. At that time, it was scary, extremely scary.
Hmm.
I was asked to do roles, and if even while we were working together, every role that I did, I had no clue how to do it. Right, uh, right through my, literally right through my career, I've done roles which I didn't know how to do, and there is no way anybody can succeed, unless your team helps you succeed. There's no other way. And I think that's probably the big difference. So in a way, it helped not knowing,
Yeah.
and that's the state I'm still
Yeah.
in. Still not knowing. I have no clue what coaching is today, and so I'm very extremely, uh, feel very surprised when somebody says, we love to hear you. So,
I think you exemplify coachability because being coachable is the fundamental requirement for being a good coach, and you exemplify that by your statement that I don't really see myself as that, which means there's so much still more to distance to go. So thank you for that. My next question, Ramesh, before I pass it to the audience, is for a lot of coaches, coaching as a profession would mean one-to-one coaching, group coaching, or doing some workshops, right? But one of the things that you do is train the practicing aspiring coaches and help them acquire certification. So can you talk a little bit about it? How did this come through? What was your thinking?
so to do with just like everything to do in life for me, Kinshuk, I think it is uh, purely just an opportunity that came my way and I took it. So happened that, and Priya is on this call, it just so happened that uh, one fine day, somebody asked Priya, do you want to become a coach trainer? And she said yes. And she technically, her mind is that way. I mean, she's designed to work with people and handhold people and all of it. And after a year or two of working with that particular friend of ours, that gentleman decided to go on his own way. And I just happened to join Priya as a partner. So it was, everything was incidental. And I think that's probably one of the downsides or upsides, I still don't know. But for me, it's always been an upside, right? I mean, being able to seize an opportunity when it comes without being hung up about whether it's going to work or not. So it has worked so far, and I think that's the difference. So today, if you ask me, for example, what am I going to do next in life, I have no clue. So we'll see when it happens. So so it's not a very nice answer, which is not a very academic answer. And I know before the call, Aditya and I were talking. So Aditya has even written a book, How to Build a Career. And if he speaks to me, he'll never have a book.
Sure, sure. No, as I continue to notice, Ramesh, it's a state of wonder that you are expressing. That everything, you look at it from a position of curiosity and as to what could happen. So that's beautiful.
And I really love your statement, Ramesh, where you said, I see the opportunity as is, and I'm not hung up about whether it would work or not, because that would keep so many possibilities open. Otherwise, if you know what the opportunity is going to give, then your possibilities are closed. So it's all about the mindset. I mean, that's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, yeah. And I especially love the answer, Ramesh, because there was one point in time when my boss gave me a career option, saying that, will you move from Pune to Lucknow? So I said, I'll take half an hour to do a decision matrix and come to you with a response. So after half an hour, I went to him. He says, I don't care where you go, but next time don't take half an hour, because there won't be a time like this. So I love your response. Thank you. So I think it's a good time to pass it to the audience. Anyone who is thinking of asking a question or has a question ready?
Ramesh, Ahalya here.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, you are. So you actually you started as a coach, and then now you are really coaching the aspiring coaches, right? Training the aspiring coaches. So what is it? Something like you learned when you started your coaching journey, and which you really want to tell us, which you think like it's going to be useful for us as a
So,
coach.
so can I ask you to clarify that a little more earlier? Is it about the being a training coaches, or it's about my coaching journey?
When you started new as a coach, because we are in that phase now. So anything which is like in the transition period you observed, which you feel like is going to be useful for us now, because we are in the transition period now as a coach. So if you can guide us, like on anything, like any tips,
So I don't know whether I should say it the way I'm going to say it, but I probably will, because today, in hindsight, I feel that I was extremely arrogant. Okay, now, because now I know what, at least to some extent, what coaching is. But when I started my journey, I had no clue what coaching is. But I thought I did. And that is, I actually started coaching even before I completed my certification. And because I was very fortunate, because my organization hired me as an internal coach. As I was already, I was still an employee there, but I continued to start coaching there. But it so happened that I thought I was a great coach. So somewhere some bit of arrogance in your ability maybe is important. And I think if I didn't have that, I would not have taken the risk, right? And it's not only just in just the one-on-one coaching. As part of the introduction, Kinshuk talked about team coaching. I went and decided to coach a team without having a clue of what it is. And the interesting thing is I learned that team coaching is, it's a very evolved approach to coaching much later. And there are giants in this world who do great jobs at it, right? But today I actually consider myself as a decent systemic team coach. But I learned on my own. But if I had constraints saying that I didn't know, I don't think I'd have taken that first assignment. And at first assignment, I did extremely well. It was the third one which I messed up. So I actually messed up my third assignment because I thought, I started getting worried. Am I doing a good job and things like that? So self-doubt started creeping in later. And I saw the same thing happen even in my coaching journey. After I got my PCC certification, I messed up a lot of coaching assignments. Before I had my certification, I actually did. I did quite a good job, and I almost literally any coaching engagement that I had, I think I left the coaching in a good space, and left them with something of value. But I did mess up a couple of engagements in about 2 to 3 months after I got my PCC, because I thought I knew what it is about, right? Or I don't know what. So probably that, though I use the word arrogance, I think the readiness to just go try it and see what happens probably is extremely important. And just that confidence that you can make it happen. And, those of you who've been with me and Priya in the program would have heard this. I don't think as a coach, you can ever leave a client in a worse off situation than the person came to you with, right? Especially if your intent is right. So I think we should just go with that and just try.
Yeah. Thanks, Ramesh. Yes. Thanks for your vulnerability. This is what we want to hear, actually. A very, very candid answer, so that we are sure, candid and practical answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ramesh, this is Tushar. So if you can talk a little bit about your early journeys, how did you break through into first initial assignments? You talked about taking up coaching within the organization itself. I think it'll be useful to know how you went about it, because I'm also part of an organization and I'm thinking of a similar route. I don't know how it worked for you. If you can talk about that a little bit.
I had some advantage there, Tushar. I was part of the leadership team, right? And when we decided to go to start coaching, I had significant leverage on who can be a coach. And it just so happened that everybody agreed that, and Bala's in the call today. So, the organization put us through a coach training program, which in hindsight didn't really help me at that time, but I thought I was already a coach, like I said. But I actually did coaching. The 20 of us who were put through that program, I don't know how many others, but I know only of one other person who actually did coaching in the organization after going through that program. But after I decided to become a coach, which was 3 years later. And that's when I decided to quit the organization and all of it. Being part of that leadership team gave me visibility to that opportunity coming up. So that was clearly there. Two is, I think I had that leverage and credibility where nobody would have, everybody was probably quite happy, and I'm assuming that's my, probably happy to have me as a coach. So I don't know whether again I'm being a little arrogant here, but whatever. But so I had that leverage. So that was my biggest advantage, right? But the bigger and most important thing was what happened after that. See, the organization, so I continued as an employee for a year, and I was doing some other project along with coaching. Another 6 months, I stayed on as a retainer, okay? And in all those 1.5 years, I just somehow didn't even bother to build my coaching, my coaching practice, so to say. And that was the biggest mistake I had made, right? So I had the opportunity of getting my first, my first organization, my first client, and even today the client, they remain a client of mine, but extremely small. I mean, it's a very small part of my revenue today. After 18 months, and this was a conversation Priya and I had, right? Because at the end of it, what it meant is, walking out and having so even as a retainer, you have a monthly income coming.
Yeah.
you have no income. So the first time in my career, or the first time in our career, Priya and me, and for those of you on the call who don't know Priya is my wife and she's on this call. She's also a coach like me. We would have ended up without a monthly income. And that was the scariest part of my career. It almost took me into a depression. I still had so the only engagement that I had, so I was still contracting with, and this was TCS, right? So I was still contracting with TCS, but the revenue was nowhere close to what was a comfortable monthly income for the two of us. There was no sign of a new business, right? So what we had a conversation. So sometimes it's good to have a coach at home. So we had a conversation, and then we sort of agreed that I need to hire a coach for myself. So I actually hired a coach, and that's probably the best investment I've done after I quit my job. If I hadn't done that, I don't know what I would have done. I've probably gone back and looked for another job, got scared. I don't know what. It was a very, very scary period. So, I still remember 2015. So the very, very long answer, and I even forgot what was your question, Tushar, but that was a true journey. So the first job was easy, I mean, because it was pure luck, but the next part of the journey was the most difficult thing, and being coached helped me significantly. It got me a lot of clarity. And I was engaged for 6 months with that coach, wonderful lady. So it worked. After that, it was just an uphill drive for us.
So what shifted for you through that coaching session? And related question is, how long was it before you got your first, I guess, revenue trickling in through coaching?
Actually, the interesting thing is, on my first session with this coach, and that is all it needed. Actually, I don't know what shifted. All it needed was for me to be able to have a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody.
Right. Okay.
Just being able to put things down. I had a lot of things which was confusing me at that time, multiple priorities in life and all of it. So just putting it down and talking about it itself probably made a difference. And I think the shift essentially was just getting it out, getting that fear out.
Okay.
Right? It was. I don't think anything changed in terms of my approach. Right. The second thing probably that changed is that, I had a list of and that's now that it reminded me. After that, even today, literally all the work that Priya and I do are reference. Okay, it either comes through people who know us, or it has come through an engagement where somebody else has referred us out to another engagement. We hardly do greenfield work.
Okay.
In the sense, knocking at doors and saying, I want a job, sort of thing, right? So yes, I do knock at doors, but to people I know. So my ex-colleagues, my friends and things like that, I tell them, I tell people I'm a coach. So nobody out there knew I'm a coach. And that was the first change that I made. So I actually called people, met them. We traveled a lot. We spent literally 3 weeks in a month in one of the cities in India, just meeting people who knew us. But there's a difference when you meet somebody face to face and tell them, I'm a coach. I would be interested in, if you have some work, what it is. But what we also realized at that time, and probably it's a little different today, but at that time, is that most people didn't even know what coaching meant.
Right. Okay.
To explain what coaching is. The second part of what happened was that for us, for both me and Priya, we also love working with groups. So we brought in another component to our business, which is emotional intelligence. So we said because that's a big part of what leadership is all about, right? So we offered to work with people to help understand what emotional intelligence means and things like that. So we brought in multiple offerings. So that's when, so pure coaching was just one piece of it. So multiple offerings. So we do today, we offer programs around mentoring. We offer programs around emotional intelligence. We offer programs around business areas, which, where, for example, somebody says, there is no trust in the team. So what do we do? So we work with them. Like I said, I'm my area of focus is systemic team coaching. So I work with teams. So multiple, so over the year, that 1 year, actually we built the entire portfolio of all our offerings. So it becomes more
Okay.
easier to go to market. Yeah. So long answer to your question, the next client happened in about 2 months after I started my coaching engagement, because it's just about talking to people, nothing
Right.
else. And then somebody said, I have this opportunity, come and work, help me with it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Once the tap opens, it's easy.
Continues. Okay, great. Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks a lot.
Hi,
Thanks,
Ramesh.
Tushar.
Kamal here.
Yeah, come
Sorry, I'm off camera, not well.
No issues.
So,
Okay.
first of all, thank you, Ramesh. My heart just warms up listening to you sharing your story uh, from a space of vulnerability, openness. I really want to acknowledge that it's really touched my heart how you've opened up about what you felt about coaching and your initial days in the journey. So thank you for sharing that. Um, the latter part of the story that you just shared, and I'm kind of struggling with that myself, having been in the corporate for many years now. I started on my own a couple of years ago, but I'm not, I still feel like I have a long way to go, right? So when you spoke about team coaching, I turned down 2 or 3 assignments that came to me because I felt I wasn't ready. I hadn't trained for team coaching, and I didn't know that I had the skills to be able to even deliver that assignment. I've been in consulting for the largest part of my career in PwC, but I just feel inconfident from some of these offerings perspectives. Um, I don't know if it's a question for you, but I'm just kind of um, sharing my thoughts around the barrier that I feel to break into these new offerings. Now that this is the source of my income also, right? So I better do more than just one-on-one coaching and a little bit of consulting. So tell me, how do I'm really not getting the courage to go out there and say, hey, I can take this up. I'm not certified, and teams and systems and all of that, I don't know if I've shared with you in the class too, is also happens to be my passion area. Working, I work a lot with transition, leaders transitioning into senior management, but I also want to work a lot with teams. So if you can share, what would be a good point for me to say, hey, I'm not ready for the kind of investment that it takes, because I'm still in the journey of PCC, and that's a lot of investment too. So I don't have that kind of money to invest in a team coaching program at this stage, maybe a couple of years down the line. And I fundamentally believe I want to earn from a line of service before I'm able to start that from my own savings. You know what I'm saying? I want to earn from the work that I do and then pump it back into my learnings before I'm able to start offering that. So what would be a good point for me to say to start taking on those assignments, bit by bit? I mean, what is it going to take really? I know there are no easy answers, but just listening to you might just give me some clarity or confidence.
So Kamal, I think it just, the only thing that it takes is your own self-confidence, trust in your, nothing else. I don't believe any of this is rocket science, right? And the more, so let me put it this way. Almost, I'm sure it's the same with most of you, right? You pick up a book on some new concept somewhere and read it. 80% of what's in that book you already know. there are going to be maybe a couple of things there which is something new to you, but more or less you already know what's there. So there is hardly anything out there, especially with most people on this call who have a lot of prior work experience, have done multiple things in their careers. There's very little that you don't know. And so it's just self-confidence, just putting yourself out there, being ready to be vulnerable with yourself. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. And that's the toughest part, right? As individuals, our ego comes in the way of saying, "What if I fail?"
Yeah.
There's a beautiful term which I read somewhere and I saw somewhere, and Priya and I actually use it on our decks very often. But so the mother bird is telling what do you call it? The baby bird is telling the mother bird, what if I fall? But the mother bird tells the baby bird, what if you fly? Right? So it is just that difference. So it is just a perspective. And I think what I'm learning so much, especially in the last, and I'm not even saying the last 6 years, which is my coaching career. I think in the last 15 years, a lot to do, or maybe even more, is most of my career has been just finding out that yes, I failed. I think all of us fail quite often, but none of us have failed so bleed that we've never been able to recover. It's very rarely going to happen, right? All of us get knocked on our heads once in a while, and that's part of the learning. And in boxing terms, if you don't get hit on the head, when you get really, when you practice, when you don't get hit, when you get into the ring and get hit, you're going to get knocked out. So it's best to get hit. So just go into the ring and get hit. There's no other way to learn.
Thanks, Ramesh. That was coaching for me actually right there. Thank you for that.
Ramesh, Kingshuk, if I may ask, I don't know if you're moving on to another segment.
No, absolutely. Please go on. Yeah. Absolutely.
I see Jitendra also unmuted. So after Neeraj, Jitendra, please.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Thanks so much, Ramesh. Wonderful as always to hear your insights. My question is, related to what you spoke about. Coaching is such a relationship-driven business, right? And you refer to it in terms of meeting people face to face. But currently, given the situation that we are in, it's extremely difficult. Obviously, there's no sight when we'll actually start meeting people face to face. What's your advice for some of us who probably will start our journey during these times to be able to build our networks, collaborate with people? Any advice?
I was dreading somebody will ask me that question. You know why? Because one thing I don't do very well is connect people virtually, with people virtually. I'm pathetic at it. So my comfort zone is meeting with people and connecting with them face to face, one-on-one, talking to, and things like that. So seriously, Neeraj, I don't have a clue, and I'm assuming that as a group of people who are all going through the same challenge, all of us are now attuning to a situation where we are comfortable with people reaching out to us virtually too. So I'm assuming that's going to start happening. But frankly, I've not done any serious new BD work, if I might to say, over the last 1 year. But it is a wake-up call, I guess, even for me and Priya. So we've not done that for the last 1 year. We just took it for granted that this is going to go away in a year. And it certainly isn't. We are now talking about the third wave. So if we don't do something, I don't think we'll have business for next year. Yeah.
So if I may chip in, Ramesh over here, Neeraj, it's a very valid scare and fear that many businessmen have, along with us coaches. So one of the things that I've learned is there are quite a few networking platforms that are there, which facilitate online networking as well. So you may want to kind of start taking a look at them and start building your network around this time. The way to look at this, and again, I've learned it a little late. I wish I would have learned it a little sooner. The only way to look at it is that previously when you meet face to face, physical boundaries are a big limitation, but now they are not there. So what you could have accomplished meeting person to person, now you can meet a person anywhere in the world practically, and start building a relationship. So look at it that way, and things could start changing.
Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks, everyone.
Sure.
Yes,
Thanks.
Sorry,
Namaskar,
I
Ramesh.
think Jitendra had his hand up quite off for the
Yeah,
last
Jitendra.
almost like 10 minutes, so let's hear him out.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Aditya and Kingshuk, for organizing it. And thanks, Hemant, for sharing the link with me. And it's quite an experience to, see and listen to you, Ramesh. You come out quite humbly as you are expressing your thoughts. So thank you for giving me an experience that you are quite approachable and I can ask my questions to you. So Ramesh, I'm actually quite early in the journey of ACC. Um, I may not have as much experience as you guys have in the call. And I'm just got my first client on a pro bono basis, and I'm actually coaching him. And one question that I have is this coaching is actually kind of works at the conscious level, right? And if I'm supposed to, kind of erase the belief of the system where the thoughts are emerging, and there are approaches of doing that, like a breath work or some kriyas and Osho's ways of doing that. If you know what I'm talking about, um, uh, then does coaching becomes more holistic? Because if you kind of combine ICF model of coaching by asking powerful question, and I'm also reading a book of Coaching for Performance by Sir John, and he shares about responsibility can only come after being aware that what are the blind spots. And as a coach, we are supposed to make people aware. So here in my coaching call, this person is aware about his blind spots, but he's not able to come out of that, right? So does those approaches, if integrated well with the coaching, actually helps? And if you don't use those, then how do you deal with these situations?
That's a tough question to answer, Jitendra, without understanding the context of individual, right? I mean, and I'm not going to ask you for that because I'm sure it's confidential. See, I think one of the, and as a coach, I think all of us, we will need to know our limitations too, right? There are going to be situations or some forms of work with certain clients where coaching will not work. Yeah, so coaching is certainly not a magic wand. I mean, it cannot solve everybody's and all problems in the world. We have to know what it will solve and what it will not solve. So very clearly, very deep-rooted psychological issues cannot be solved with coaching. You cannot solve, or you cannot coach somebody, for example, who is not ready to be coached. So for somebody who is not ready to be vulnerable, you cannot coach. You can't help the person in any case, right? So I think that clarity is important. Now, what tools and techniques to use? I personally I'm not, so I come from a, so let me put it this way. I don't come from a psychological school of thinking. Okay, I come from purely a business way of thinking, right? And I prefer to work with what's emerging with the client at that point in time. So whatever is there, work with that. So for example, I don't use psychometrics. I don't even. So I won't just say the word. I don't believe in them, but I at least in my mind, it comes in the way of being there for the client, right? So I think we just have to figure out what we can do and what we cannot do. So, for example, if this client is, he knows what his challenge is, but he doesn't know how to overcome it, maybe there's something which either the person is not ready to go to. So there's a point, so so let me step back a bit. So probably the person is not ready to explore that area, or it is so deep rooted that as a coach, you will not be able to take it there. It's one of them, right? So if it is a former, there is at least a possibility because then you can work with him or her over a couple, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, still some trust is built and slowly the person opens up. But if it is a latter, there is very little you can really do. It's better to, sort of help the person find, say, maybe a psychologist or a counselor or a therapist or something like that.
Okay, thanks, Ramesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Jatinder. I will pass it to Aditya in case there are no questions in the group at this stage. Anyone else?
Kingshuk, I wanted to ask one question.
Yeah, sure.
Ramesh, can you talk a bit about how you came to land on the systemic coaching specialization? How is that process, and how did you figure out that's the right thing for you to do?
One is, Hemant, I don't even know what is right or wrong. Okay? I just know that I'm comfortable with it.
Got it.
So I think this is how it happened, right? So if you look at my profile, you'll see even today, and I keep trying to remember to change it, but I still haven't done it. So it says change management consultant and executive coach. So change management consultant is my first part of who I am, right? And that's what I've done probably for the last 15 years of my career, right? And I think I'm pretty good at it. So what happens in change management is that you have a few things that need to get done when some change is happening. It is typically called a project plan, if you want to call it in some words. You communicate that project plan, and then there is a group of people who has to make it happen. Now, the reason why the plan doesn't succeed is because of not that because the plan is not good enough, because most organizations, teams, individuals, we know what to do. It's actually the simplest part of any change, right? To know what change to make. You communicate also reasonably well. I mean, there may be better ways of doing it, but you do that too. So a lot of people know there's a change coming, all of it. But what doesn't happen is there is no alignment of the people who are going to get affected from the change to that change.
Got it.
And that is where all failures in change management happen. I'm using the word very consciously. I'm saying all failures because I believe that if something doesn't work, it is because people don't get together and make it work. They pull in different directions and it fails, right? So when I started coaching, that's the first thing I realized. This is one great way of helping people understand that what do they need to change for themselves to be part of that change. And somewhere down the line, I've forgotten what change management is. I don't do it anymore. I don't think I'll even enjoy doing it anymore. So systemic team coaching, and I'm going to explain what systemic is in a minute, okay? So team coaching actually evolved from there. So it was again one of those pure dumb luck situations that I had where something which was adjacent to what I do worked, and it fits in beautifully with what I'm trying to do today. So I stumbled upon it again. It's just that I recognized as an opportunity and I took it up. That's the only difference, right? So from being, from being a change management consultant who looks at project plans and makes things change, I said, no, I will make sure the people who are supposed to do it make that change for themselves. So just a reframing of the approach to change management.
Got it.
Today, I bring in what is known as a systemic view to it. So you can't make change unless the systems around that change also align to that change. So it is not just the group, it's also the system. So how do you make sure the group works with a systemic view so that when change happens, it is sustainable.
Makes sense. Thanks a lot. Can I steal one more question? Just a quick question. Do we have time?
I'll let Kingshuk and Aditya
Sure,
decide
go
that.
ahead, go ahead, please, of
So,
course.
one thing I was curious about. So, when you mentioned that you started coaching, and after some time you felt that you were arrogant, and then you basically took the plunge to go independent. So, what I heard is that you had some skills. So, uh, uh, what was that gut feel that said, okay, that so the calls were going well. What was the on the ground? What was happening that basically gave that sense of confidence to you that okay, I'm a reasonably good coach and I can go alone? Any thoughts on that?
No, I was managing teams, Hemant.
Okay.
And at that time, like I said, I didn't know what coaching meant. So I thought I was coaching people. I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Probably mentoring them, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
but I was managing pretty large teams. So I just assumed, oh, this is very simple. Now that I anyway deal with people, so coaching is about people, so I can do it. And I went ahead and did it. That's it.
That's it. Thanks for the frank
Ignorance.
answer. Yeah,
Ignorance led to arrogance. Nothing
Got it.
more.
Got it. Wonderful hearing you again, Ramesh. Thanks for your views and open sharing. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kingshuk.
Thank you, Hemant. Thank you, Hemant. So I'll pass it to Aditya, to share something about our next session. So Adi, over to you.
Thanks, Kingshuk. Next week, as many of you know, this is a weekly. This is a weekly event that happens, and we invite guests from different places. So next week we have Sanjeev Bhatia coming onto the show. Sanjeev Bhatia has been a global head of HR, leading teams across 20, 30 countries, has done wonderful work when he was in the industry. Now he's a coach. One thing that got me in touch with Sanjeev last year was that he has brought in a few coaches and coached a few people who were impacted by COVID for free. And he's done that at a pretty large scale. And so I want him to talk about what made him start looking at giving as opposed to just taking. And also he would be talking about the benefits that that giving has given him and his overall business. So hopefully most of you will be there for the session next week, same time. Over to you, Kingshuk, for other questions.
So, Aditya, I have to really acknowledge what you're doing here, right? And I think you didn't introduce yourself, nor did Kingshuk when we started. Just the conversation that we are having here, it's interesting. Many of these folks I know already, right? But we've not had a forum to have a conversation of this kind. And I think you're just doing a wonderful job creating a forum like this. So, on behalf of this fraternity, I really want to thank you. So fantastic idea, Aditya.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you. Over to you, Kingshuk. You're on mute, Kingshuk.
Yeah, thank you, Ramesh. It's Adi's baby. Happy to support. Yeah. So Ramesh, we have one question, and I'm sensitive about the time. So my question is, what was the most challenging coaching assignment that you had, and what made it so challenging?
I think every coaching assignment is challenging. The next client is your moment of truth. It's as simple as that. I don't, I don't think I've had a coaching engagement where I really even knew what to expect, because every client is different. It's completely different from the earlier one. But I think, one engagement which probably stands out in my mind, and it was an engagement where so I was asked to coach 4 people in the leadership team, and the sponsor was their direct supervisor. Okay, and I went into that engagement. The understanding that we had is that we will do a 3-way conversation with each one of them. So the sponsor, myself, and the coachee or the coachee leader before the coaching starts. And so this was a physical coaching intervention. So this client is in Bangalore, so I went into their corporate office. We had set up I think a 3-hour window for this briefing and all of it. So the HR leader had set up everything. I had spoken to the sponsor before the coaching engagement. We had agreed to all of it. I even met the sponsor, understood his perspective as to why he thinks it will help and all of it, right? The first part of the first half an hour I spent with all 4 of them, including the sponsor in the room and the head of HR, explaining what coaching is, what they can expect, all of that. So I spent, helped them understand what it is, because most of them are going to go through coaching for the first time, including the sponsor. So he was not one coach, he was just a sponsor. After that session was over, there was a short break, and then we are supposed to have one by one, each one come in for half an hour, where we do a 3-way conversation. This guy, the sponsor, walks up to me and says, Ramesh, I want to do this differently. I don't want to do a one-on-one conversation. I'm going to do it as a group. So I said, wow, this guy has got a lot of guts to be able to tell the entire group what each of them needs to work on and things like that. So what happened is, I said, okay. So we walked in. He brought in the 4 people. He just stood there and gave 4 broad buckets of what he wants to see all 4 change on. Okay. Some reason it didn't still register to me as to, how. So some curiosity as to what is it that all 4 have in common. It's interesting that all 4 have the same challenge to work with in common, right? So we finished that conversation. I said, can we still have a one-on-one? He said, no, I have now to run away. My CEO is calling me and I have to go. After the 3rd session with each of those clients, I sort of realized, actually the first session itself, I realized that none of them could even relate to what he's trying to say. By the 3rd session, I realized that there is no communication between him and his PRs. Right? I called off that engagement. So it was not a difficult engagement. I think it was an engagement where I should have been a little clear on, these are the ground rules, and if you don't keep to those ground rules, I'm not going to engage. And I was very clear on, that if we don't do a conversation, there is no way the client, the coachee knows what to work on. I knew that, but I still went ahead with it. Maybe partly because, 4 people getting 4 clients at a time is not a, it's a big deal, right? As a coach. I didn't want to lose that opportunity. Maybe that was what it is. But whatever, that was a learning. And I, from then on, whenever I feel uncomfortable with a coaching situation, whenever I find either the client is not ready, or the organization is not ready, or the organization has not set it up properly, I prefer to call it out and let it work to, to a logical state where the organization is ready and the client is ready. Yeah. So that's what I probably would think should call a difficult
challenging
situation.
Moment.
Yeah.
Sure. So thanks, Ramesh. I'll just move the microphone around the room. We'll probably take 1 or maybe 2 questions and then conclude.
So Ramesh, if I may ask a question here.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So this was a group, an intervention within an organization, right? So have you come across any coaching engagement where the client wanted to discontinue midway, and how did you handle that? I mean, also to understand where were you as a coach in that when that happened.
Oh, you're talking about when you said this was a team. No, this 4 people example that I gave, that was not a team. That was not a team coaching engagement. In a team coaching engagement, even the supervisor would be part of the coaching journey.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
It was a one-on-one coaching engagement. So I'm not sure what was the intent of your question, Kamal?
No, so I'm asking this because, about a couple of months back when I started out, and I did face a situation where the client wanted to discontinue midway. Yeah. And obviously, as coaches, we are starting out, and that confidence, and it takes time to build that confidence, right? And you start to question yourself, was it about me? Or was it about the client? And I'm just wondering, it left me very dazed at that moment, as a new coach. Did I do something wrong? Should I have done this differently? So just bouncing this off to you to understand if you've gone through something like this and how have you handled it.
So self-doubt as a coach is part of the journey. I think irrespective of whether the engagement was discontinued or not, self-doubt is part of the journey. There are going to be situations where you do question yourself as to, whether I'm doing enough, whether I'm doing right, all of it. So one way to help coaches navigate themselves, one is of course reflective practices. I think it is good to sit down and do some self-reflection as to what's happening to you in a coaching engagement, right? And that itself will give you some answers.
Yeah.
If you need external help, there's a process of what is known as supervision, coach supervision.
Yeah.
It is still not something which is still, it's still probably very nascent in the Indian environment, but it is a approach which is normal otherwise, right? So coaching supervision is about where the coach goes to a supervisor to be coached about their situation.
Okay.
Right? You're not getting coached for yourself, but you're getting coached about your situation.
Okay.
So that's what would help. Yeah.
Sure.
So I've had situations, and my case, most like I said, I have one big advantage. I have a supervisor at home. So I do some conversation sometimes. There has been one engagement where I really wasn't sure where it is going, and it was challenging. And in that case, actually, I reached out to Ram Ramanathan, who's the Kocharya founder, right? So I was supervised by Ram on that. So so that conversation helped actually change the entire direction of how the coaching was going.
Okay.
So it helps talking to somebody else. And I know, and I think, since there's all of us are coaches here, I think each of us should feel comfortable to reach out to help to another. So in the medical profession, for example, doctor now to another doctor for medical support is common, right? Because you don't treat yourself. So I think we should do that, and we should try and and there's enough of a network out there. So if there is a challenge, it is a good thing to reach out to somebody else to talk through it.
Sure.
We should make it a practice, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ramesh. That helps.
Sure. Thank you, Ramesh. I'm sensitive about the time, so we'll conclude it here. I'll pass it to Aditya. Before that, Ramesh, I want to thank you for taking out time, for getting into so much of details, making it so personal, and responding to each of the queries with so much of context. Because the questions are coming from where they are, and your responses are coming from where you are. But the context really helped, and we haven't had this kind of interaction, this velocity of interaction in the past 4 sessions for sure. Adi can vouch for that. So thank you, Ramesh, for that. I'll pass it to Aditya to do the formalities.
Thank you, Kingshuk. I mean, I quite resonate with Kingshuk in terms of the quality of conversation that we have had. And a large part of it, I mean, maybe 50-50, is with the participants as well, with the kind of genuine and authentic questions that they were coming out with. And your responses are nothing short of them in terms of the authenticity and the frankness with which you've responded. It takes a lot of courage for many people to stand up and say, you know what, I've failed and I was vulnerable. So it's not easy, and that was coming out very easily from you. So thanks a lot for that, Ramesh.
It's actually very easy to say you failed when you've done it multiple times in your life, Aditya. So it's not a problem. You get knocked every so often, so it becomes very easy to say, sorry, I'm not, I'm very vulnerable.
That's great.
Okay.
And the rest of the all the participants in the call, if you want to be part of the subsequent sessions, please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I share these updates on LinkedIn. There's a Telegram group where I keep posting the updates. There's a WhatsApp broadcast list, so I can include you in any of these, and then you can be part of these sessions. And this is an experiential learning, as you've seen. As Ramesh was saying, that as a fraternity, we have to hold each other's hands and help each other. So that's all about it. Thank you, Ramesh.
Well, thanks so much, Aditya and Kingshuk, for creating this forum once again. I think it's a great forum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all.
Wish you well.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye.
Thanks, Ramesh.
Bye.
Thank you.